It's the Digital Babble with your host, Flipper. Colorful commentary on your photography. Seen on fingerlakes1.com.
Hey, everybody. It's the Digital Babble here on fingerlakes1.com, fingerlakes1.tv. I am your host, Flipper, here live. We're going to talk about photography. We're going to talk about Photoshop. It's a 1-hour show from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., well, approximately an hour. It starts at 7, anyhow. Every Wednesday night, we're here, and we take your questions via email. So if you want to send in your questions via email, or if you want to share some photos with us, please do so by sending them to thedigitalbabble@gmail.com. We can review them, do stuff in Photoshop with them, whatever you'd like to do, and I'll demonstrate different things that we can do with photos, or things in Photoshop that we can work with photos. We can also talk about different techniques, how to get different shots. Take principally the same stuff that you send me, and how to take it differently. Maybe review the photos and look at different compositional effects and so on and so forth. So that's the Digital Babble. I sit here for an hour. I talk, and go over different things, and hopefully you get something out of it, and I hope you enjoy the show. So last week we were talking about pet portraits, pet photography, finding different ways to make pets come alive on print or on photos. A lot of people have posed a few questions here and there, but it seems to be a running theme. And the three main questions so far that I've gotten this last week is, one, I have a problem with getting my shots to be clear when I take a shot of my pet. Saying I'm playing around with my pet on the floor and I want to take a shot with my point and shoot or my phone, and the body looks perfectly still, but the head is just blurred out. So taking that first question, let's examine the problem. Okay, the problem seems to be that if the head is blurry, but the body is perfectly still, what most likely is happening is that your shutter speed's too slow to capture the motion of the head. Now, with most animals have a very fast twitch muscle in order to stalk, in order to, the reflexes are very quick. So the twitch muscles are very, very quick to react. So you could be sitting there and you're not really even noticing that they're looking away real quick. They're just kind of, and you're just not really noticing it so much. Or maybe you do notice it, but you're not really realizing how fast it is. So 2 tips to try to correct that. 1, put more light in the area that you're working in, so you can get a faster shutter speed. And 2, raise your ISO up so you can get a faster shutter speed. The biggest thing is getting a faster shutter speed. A third tip, now that I think about it, would be to time your shutter release. In other words, start with you're playing, he's about ready to pose in that certain way. Okay, look here, baby, boop, 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 boop. And all of a sudden they look and they give you that half a second or that split second of not moving. And you got to be ready to pull that shot. It's about timing. I think we talked about that last week, was a lot of times with timing, like saying something's coming by, your pet's moving across the screen or moving across the frame. You got to pan with them and click the shutter and then time it. Click, got it. Click, got it. So that's definitely another good tip too, to try to get better, stiller pet portraits, is waiting for them to have a nice, relaxed kind of scenario. Like, playing with them on the floor probably isn't the best idea to try to get a pet portrait, because you're actively getting them going, and they might not stare long enough at the camera for you to pull the trigger, the camera to respond, capture the image, and get it. Now, if you're working with an SLR, you probably will. You got less shutter speed, so you have a little bit more rate of success, but you still have the same problem. A lot of times there's not enough light in the area that you're working in. So again, get more light into the room, whether it's shop lights, work lights, lamps, I don't care what it is. But put a lot more light in the room so that you can get a higher shutter speed. A lot of times you can just use a flash if you're good with working with flash, and I'm talking real flash, not iPhone flash. a lot of people are like, oh, I love my iPhone. I love your iPhone too. But the flash on the iPhone and the flash on like a phone or an Android tablet or whatever is typically just one single LED going bink. Okay, I kind of lit you up. Okay, I kind of got the shot. I'm talking high-powered flash. I'm talking about something that you can attach to a point and shoot or attach to an SLR. And when you pull the trigger, it's going to go whack, and it's going to hit the entire area, hit your subject, and bounce back into the camera with enough power where it's going to freeze everything in the frame, especially your subject. So that being said, lighting is always key, and I talked a lot about lighting last week. So if you get a chance, go to last week's show and check out lighting, lighting for pet portraits and get that going. But that was question one, was how to get rid of that blur, how to get rid of that motion in the pet portrait. So why is the eyes moving? Why are the eyes blurry? Why? So that, speaking about eyes, I'm going to segue right into the next segment, which will be, or the next question, which was, every time I take a picture of my animal, they look like they're demon-eyed. They have these big red, deep red eyes and then the little bit of yellow around them, and it really makes it look freaky. Well, that technically is red eye for animals. What you're seeing is this kind of reddish, goldish color. It's really not. It's not really a red, but it's kind of more like a goldenrod, yellow with a tinge of red, I guess you could say. And what that's doing is, since like cat's eyes, I can speak about cats because I shoot a lot of cats because I have 3 cats. So the opening, the iris, right, or the pupil is shaped kind of strange. So it's kind of like a teardrop almost, and that opens and closes through muscular movements like this instead of like in a human eye where it's more like opening of a hole. This is more of a kind of a, I don't know, flexor bicep kind of thing. So, if they need more light in their eye, they open up like this. When they need less, they go like that. Well, usually if you're shooting in a kind of a dark area or maybe not enough light, their eyes are open a little bit more. If the flash is aimed directly into, let's see if I can do this right, into the iris or into the pupil, it's going to go in, hit the back of the eye, and then come back out. And then what you're going to get is this weird demon eye look. And that's basically red eye for animals. Now, you can get red eye for animals on a lot of animals, horses especially, if they're not outside, saying they're in the barn. I've seen a lot of times, even having the flash off camera, sometimes will produce this weird demon eye look. And that's always possible. So it's always best to remember where your light's coming from. The best thing to do is not have it directly straight forward and then straight back. You want to make sure that you have it from the side a little bit, even 3/4, because even if it comes at this way, you're firing the flash this way, you're not going straight in to the iris, like right there. I'm having too much fun with this, looking at my finger go around on the screen here. So, that being said, that's basically red eye. Now, what are some tips on getting rid of red eye in animals? Get your flash off of, or get your lighting source off your camera plane. In other words, the camera plane is here, right? So you got a perpendicular plane and a vertical plane, or a horizontal plane that's coming out of the camera. So if you're aiming this way, your light better not be going this way and fairly close to the same axis, because it's going to go in their pupil and then come right back out, and you're going to get that demon eye effect. Just by moving that light source ever so slightly, 10 degrees up, 10 degrees back, 10 degrees side, down, I don't care which way you move it. Just get it off the camera. Even if it's only 6 inches off the camera, just move it that far. So here's your camera, you move it that far over here, and then your flash is here. It'll take care of that demon eye, red eye look with animals, especially cats. Cats are horrendous for red eye. So that's tip 1. Tip 2, have a brighter area to shoot in. Instead of flashing in a dark area where their pupils are wide open, you're going to flash in a brighter area and the pupils are less open. So you don't have to be as far off camera with your flash to not get red eye. So that's another good tip. Somebody sent that in a week ago or something. I can't remember who it was, but whoever it was, thank you for sending that in. And I always like your email, so get in on the discussion. We do everything via email. thedigitalbabble@gmail.com, or check out our website, tdbny.com. This week's show is brought to you by me. ABC, 1, 2, 3. Oh, wow. I must be tired. It's been a long day. So, the third tip that I can think of for the demon eye, red eye look with animals that you can do is try to get the animal to look away from the light source. And I'm not saying like completely away, not totally like here's the light source and they're looking that way. I'm talking, literally just turning their head slightly. Like instead of looking straight in the camera, you kind of snap your fingers up here. So that's a good way to get rid of red eye as well. So third question this week was, how do you get your animal to pose for you? Well, it's just like with any animal, person, it doesn't matter who it is. It's all about trust, first off. And second off, it's all about having a comfortable environment to be working in. One, if you can gain the animal's trust, okay? Now, here's a great example of trust. I can take Jakey, which you've seen pictures of Jakey on here. If not, go look at the Digital Babble, tdbny.com, and you can go see pictures of Jakey. And there's a trust relationship there where he trusts me, I trust him, and we can kind of work together. And it's kind of a thing where you kind of build this bond between you, the camera, and the animal, so that the camera doesn't become threatening, the flash of the light doesn't become threatening, and the animal is comfortable in what you're trying to get them to do. So that's first thing. Get that trust relationship going. Do the shoot not when the animal's tired per se, but when the animal's calm. If the animal's ready to be rambunctious and go, okay, maybe some action shots, great. But to do an actual portrait, you'd want to wait until the animal slowed down just a touch, and I'm talking just a touch. I'm get past that point of oh my god, I'm happy to see you. Let's go take a picture. Let's get to more of the hey, how you doing? Here I am. And that's kind of the level change that you're looking for. Once you get them to that point, and you can keep them at that point. Like, one of the hardest things to do with, like, a bunch of dogs, okay, a pack of dogs, however you want to call it, a litter of dogs, is the fact that when you try to photograph more than one dog, you pose a dog, and then the other dogs become jealous because you're touching and playing with the other dog. So one of the best things to do if you're doing multiple dogs, if you can do them separately and work in Photoshop, that's great if you're good at it. If you're trying to get them all at the same time, you want to have maybe another person who's trustworthy with the dogs. The dogs are trusting and, are getting used to the person there, and have them play with one and you play with the other, get them kind of posed up, take a step back, and then get the shot. Another way to do that is you're still petting the dog, you're still playing with the dog, and you have a remote shutter release. Wireless one usually works nice. For iPhone, you can buy it. There's plenty of apps to make that happen. As JJ from Tech Talk would say, there's an app for that. And you can fire the camera remotely with like a little fob of some sort. And this way you're not running to the camera, refocusing, then hitting the fob or hitting whatever, or hitting the shutter. And then the dog's like following you around instead of actually doing what you're asking it to do. So that's one good thing. The other thing you can do is you can set up a monitor, a computer monitor, and you can always, do like a viewfinder. So you're looking at a viewfinder of the viewfinder. And that way you don't have to be behind the camera, then you pose the animal and you work with the animal. Another great thing, treats. Treats. Depends on how your animal works with treats. Most dogs, if you give them a hard treat, like a kibble treat, or maybe like one of those hard sausages or pepperoni sticks, you can get them to just chew on it for a while, and they'll gnaw on it, and they'll kind of tire themselves out, and they'll be like, oh, I'm all happy. Okay, take my picture. Hello, I'm Buffy. Nice to see you. Oh, look, this is my best side. And that's pretty much how you kind of work the dog into getting the picture. And then same way with working with two dogs, you kind of try to work the whole group into the same picture, kind of keeping them calm. Somebody wrote in on I forget if it was Facebook or if it was email. I think it was email. Somebody wrote in that, you could always give the dog Benadryl. I was like, no, don't give the dog anything like that. Tranquilizers, Benadryl, nothing. Just work with the dog and work through the treats. So that being said, there's three questions that seems to be the common theme from several users. Is just those are the same three questions. It sounds like they're asking. So moving on this week a little bit further and getting into compositionally what we can do with pet portraits and what can be a very fun thing can turn into a very fun playtime with your animal by practicing some of the bases of composition and portrait with the animal. So they kind of become your best model per se. So let's get over the drawing board here. And let's talk about some compositional stuff. So, lighting setup we talked about last week, but we can always talk a little bit more about it. One of the big things about lighting is having one big source of light, which would be behind the camera or by the camera facing forward. You're going to have a second light, a hair light, a less bright light coming from another direction, whether that's window light, whether that's light from a fluorescent bulb like from above or wherever. But having a second light source that'll show up on your picture will help separate the animal's finer hair from the background. So that way they almost stand off the page. They kind of come off the page. So they become the main center of attention. The portrait becomes the animal becomes that focus for that portrait. So what is a good pose for most animals? I can't tell you about anybody's animal except for my animal because I know my animal. But I can tell you what works for many different types of animals. Cats really have two great poses that I think are amazing if you can get them to do it. One is that little kind of, they sit on their butt, their tail swished around them, around their butt, kind of curled up, and they're kind of sitting there straight-legged in the front. And they look very proud, and they look at you, and they almost kind of look up at you like a three-quarter shot. That works good for cats. The other one that works kind of good for cats is something like this from Oscar the cat, where you kind of have the body kind of going 45 degrees across the frame, and then they're kind of, sitting on something nice and soft and fluffy, and then a little bit of a head tilt, a little bit of everything moving or tilting. So that way you get a good portrait composition, bringing the head forward, in the front part of the frame, making it larger, maybe exaggerating it if you have a wide angle lens. Sometimes can be a fun thing to do. This one I find cute and funny of Oscar because of two reasons. One, he's sitting on the clean clothes, and two, from a portrait standpoint, if this was shot on a plain background or a better background, this would be a very nice pet portrait that I would say let's hang up on the wall and be like, hey, here you go. So this pose kind of works where they're kind of laying down at attention but not stiff. They're very relaxed. They're very willing to lay there or be there. And then they're looking at you or looking at the camera or somewhere near the camera. And I think what happened was I started to take the picture, and Oscar saw my finger move on the shutter, and that sparked him to go look at my shutter finger. So that's that type of pose. And then I really think, whoops, nope, let's try this one. Oh, that's us. Where did Jakey go? I must have got rid of Jakey. But then, like here with this horse, this works really nice. Very directional light. The light's coming almost directly from the side. There's plenty of snow around this area where it was reflecting enough light back into the shadows, making them less dark and less harsh on the right side of the frame. The animal is very calm, very relaxed, came over to the fence and was talking to us, basically just, wanting to get petted, and I think he probably wanted some maple candies that we were looking at getting. There's some good separation between the horse's mane and the ears and the background. And it's a nice pose because it gives the horse some type of human quality. It depends on how you believe and how you think, but I believe that there's a soul there, some type of soul that, some type of energy that you can capture on a photo. And this animal, presented that when we took this photo, and it was just kind of like a nice, hey, here I am. Yo, man, I'm Jacob. What's up? I'm the Amish horse, man. I don't know if he's Amish or not, but whatever. The whole thing is that, here's the horse, and it presents personality. It presents human-like traits, and that's one of the things about photographing animals, is finding those human traits and presenting them in the best light. Finding the animal traits and presenting them the best you can. I like this picture myself, but that's me. So let's see. We were talking about floodlights here. We talked about composition. One of the big things about composition that we talk about is always getting the angle where your camera is. If you're always looking down on the animal, it's not going to be a very fun picture per se if the animal's always looking down on you, unless it's an interesting angle. If you're always looking from eye level down with your camera, boom, and you snap, you're always going to get the same snapshot. The big thing is get down with the animal. Find, get them a pose, get them to pose, play with them a little bit, but don't get them roughed up where they're getting all riled up. You want to get them kind of like in a nice happy place, Get them sitting up, get them sitting down, they're laying down. Maybe they're rolling over. I mean, Jakey loves to roll over and show everybody his belly and be like, hey, look at me, I am a sexy swimsuit model. And I don't know, Jakey's just weird like that, but he has some interesting poses, and he's very comfortable around not only us but the camera as well. And that's really what you're trying to get with pet portraits. Now, how do you get better pet portraits with your animal? Same thing, keep the camera by you as you're playing with your animal every night. Do a little bit more. I bet you within a couple, 3 days, you could probably have the camera right up to your face, snapping photos, and the animal's not going to care. Unless you got a skittish cat, then our hissy's that way. So sometimes that's kind of tough. But really, and then finding good quality compositional elements to your shot. Like the horse was, I really think the horse had some compositional elements to it, some very nice ones. The eyes here are at a third. I think that one eye is almost on a PowerPoint. You got some perspective lines here with the bar and the harnesses and his nose area and face area kind of sloping backwards. And there's a lot of good solid lines that kind of lead your eye right around the whole photo. Some light and dark areas, bring your eye in, bring it back, bring it in, bring it back. I mean, it's got a lot of nice compositional elements. Very separated from the background. There's not too much distracting in the background. I just noticed that there's, I think, an excavator behind him. But, that's easy to Photoshop out if you want to get rid of it. If not, if you're still taking these shots, take a look and move a little bit, and then you wouldn't have that. But a lot of good things here as far as composition, and it captures this personality, I think. I really think, like, you could almost talk to this horse and be like, hey, Mr. Ed, and he'd be like, hey, well, and I know I'm dating myself. I'm sorry. But really, you can find these qualities in just about any animal. Maybe not turtles. I don't know. I've never photographed turtles before, so don't ask me to figure that one out. So one of the best things you can do for composition, lighting, and your animal is keeping it simple. So something like this, where you have a single light source, whether it's the sun, whether it's a window, whether it's your flash, whether it's a flashlight, and then the camera. Get enough light onto the scene so that you can have a fast enough shutter speed so you don't get any blur. And then create the shot. Get some lines going with maybe the ears form a V at the top, and then maybe the eyes are slanted. Get them to tilt their head a little bit. Huh? How many times have you looked at your dog, and you hold something up, you're like, hey, what's that? And, that can be a good portrait, especially if you can get them to look at the camera and do that. And be like, hey, man, what's that? Snap. Oh, my God, here's my goofy dog, Maybe you captured exactly what he is as a goofy dog or whatever, or maybe a silly cat, or whatever, just kind of get that feel for it and get some composition going. Background's always a good thing to remember to watch for things in the background. Sometimes natural portraits or scenery portraits or environmental portraits are a nice thing. So like the shot with Oscar earlier. Oh, whoops, that's the horse again. So, here's another picture of Oscar. So this picture is kind of neat of Oscar, but it's an environmental portrait. It kind of shows you know he's in the laundry room, you know he's on clean clothes, you don't care. And he's got this really pretty kind of like look to him. Everything's tilted. You look at the lines of the eyes, look at the lines of the ears. Nothing's uniform straight onto the camera. He kind of slants backwards away from you. There's all the whiskers are bowed a little bit, and they're very visible. The mouth even draws kind of like a nice little V there in the middle. The paws are kind of bent just so, it just has a lot of neat elements to it that really makes it. And his face is in a PowerPoint. If you draw the rule of thirds up here, draw a tic-tac-toe board on your photo. Where does the eyes fall? Where did the head fall? Where does the subject fall? The subject falls is one of those PowerPoints. A lot of times you're going to get a lot more oomph with a picture than not. Sometimes that rule's broken many times, so it depends, but rule of thirds is a really nice way to start. Let's see here. Gotta get rid of Oscar here. And let's see. So keeping it simple, posing. How do you pose your animal? Use treats. Pose them, pet them, pose them, move them. Kind of get them used to you moving them around. If they eventually get to the point where they're happy with, okay, they're moving me around here and they want me to be like this, they'll eventually get it through their head that, oh, they want me to sit like this. Let's see, sit like this, snap. Oh, look, we're all done. Thank you. Here's a treat. Bye-bye. Working with the animal and teaching them to sit, to lay down, to roll over, to follow voice commands, okay? Another thing is that, when you're working with your camera, even if you have a clicker or you snap your fingers a little bit right here above the lens, a lot of times you can get an animal to look straight into the lens and give you that human element that so many pet portraits attempt to connect with, but they tend to fall short because they're looking off into space, or they're blurred, or they're moving, or they're blinking, or something. So posing. Work with the animal, get them comfortable, and then pose them. Compositionally, lines. A lot of lines are great. I like a lot of lines. I like lines with the eyes, so they're not straight across horizontal, but more like a slant. I like the ears to be a little, offset. So like instead of, you got the horse's ears here, don't have them straight here, straight on where they're the same height. I would say, slightly one way or one the other, or tilt the head or tilt the head this way. It gives that human portrait element to an animal portrait. So body tilts, making sure that nothing's square. I mean, I don't know too many animals that aren't fluid in some way with their motions. I mean, horses are very graceful. Cats, most of the time, are very graceful. Dogs sometimes can be pretty clumsy, but a lot of times, just because of the pure fact that they're just an animal, they're very graceful with how they move and how they're very intentional about how they move, where they put their feet, so on and so forth. Find those curves as they're making a step. Maybe they're putting their paw up, and as they're putting their paw up, you're going to get a little bit of a paw bend. I mean, it's very possible, and you're looking for those things. Again, any portrait, you want to look at the background. You want to figure out if you want a simple background, a blurred background, a sharp background, whether it's complex, whether it's an environmental shot, whether there's something important in the background that applies to the animal, like maybe catnip toys for a cat. Maybe there's a bunch of toys over there and they're all scattered, and here's your cat making this goofy face in the camera. I mean, that's kind of a thing where, you can get creative in the environmental piece, telling a story about your cat. So keep in mind what's in the background. So some of the most important techniques with pet portraits, pet photography. Make sure to get down to their level. You have to shrink to become their size, because really by the end of the day, that gives them that human element. The picture then is proportionally the same size as they are, or larger. They're larger than the portrait, proportionally. So you get the sense of how big they are, how little they are, how, where they are in the world, comparably to the world. Like, if you have, okay, gotta get the mannequins out. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get the mannequins out. Somebody told me one time in an email, they're like, we think it's so funny that you play with dolls. Next time I'm going to buy Barbie and Ken dolls and we'll play with those. So I have my two mannequins here. And these guys are great because you can pose them and play, test out different lighting and stuff like that. And they really don't have no face, so you can kind of pretend. So I'm going to hold them up. They're both, that's the actual sizes to these guys. This guy's teeny, this guy's not. Okay? So when you take a shot like this, you take it far enough back, the teeny guy still looks teeny. But you bring it up here and leave him there, you can almost have the optical illusion, oh look, they're the same size, right? Same concept goes with your portrait photography. You might have a small tiny little cat, small tiny little cat right here, okay? And here's my big cat. But I want to make him look like a full-size cat. I want to make him look larger than life. Well, what am I going to do? I'm going to get right up on him until he gets up there and be like, hey, what's up? Hi, how you doing? I'm here. How you doing? Whatever. So, got to stop playing with dolls. But that's really the idea, is giving yourself, or giving life. You really want to give life to your shots and your portraits. And one way of doing that is getting close, filling the frame with your subject. Making subjects, small subjects, look like big subjects, like real life-size subjects. I mean, heck, I wonder if we can do it. We'll put him right there. Oh my god, he almost has as big a head as I do. I know, this show gets weirder and weirder every week, doesn't it? So, you could definitely do some things where it breathes some life into these photos. Getting down to the same size that they are is a big thing. Make sure that you use treats, because you got to reward them for a good job. Petting is nice, but, sometimes a little treat's fun. No chocolate, unless it's white chocolate. But, because according to everybody I talk to, white chocolate's not white chocolate, or white chocolate's not a chocolate. So really, by the end of the day, you can work with your animals, play with your animals, have fun, spend a half hour with your animal, goofing around and, trying to do these poses. It's kind of fun. Make sure that they're well rested, but not rambunctious. Try to keep them calm. I've seen people do a lot of fun pet portraits at the beach, or at a park, where they'll lay down at the park and the grass, they can get just a high enough angle. Not high like as in you're standing up high, but just kind of getting down with the animal and coming just a little higher so that you can aim down just ever so slightly so that the background's nothing but green grass. And that's kind of neat. Very nice isolation, separation of subject and background. Very simple background. It can work. And get out there and shoot. That's the biggest thing. I don't know how many pictures I've missed because I didn't have my camera on me, or I didn't have time to really... I've missed a lot of good opportunities with photos and getting some really good shots of animals that have long passed, which I miss dearly. So, now that we have digital and you can just kind of shoot and erase, or shoot and download or whatever, go have some fun. Take a half hour, shoot 50 pictures of your animal, then pick out the best 3 and be like, I like this one, I like this one, and I like that one. Throw out the rest, if you want to. If not, well, delete the rest. But that's the beauty of digital. Nowadays you can fire until you get something that you like. And that's kind of good and kind of bad in one way. One way it's bad and one way it's good. But, hey. So, where do we go from here? Once we take some photos, we got about 10, 15 minutes left. Once we get some photos, say we take some photos, what do we want to do with them? Now, here's a question. What do you want to do with these things? I keep forgetting I'm on camera, and I just put my head right to the camera, didn't I? I'm sorry. Cheers. Let me have a drink. They really got to come up with a new Pepsi version. Pepsi to the max. Oh, wait a minute. They already got that. I'm talking to the max like in... maybe it is. Maybe that is. But I don't like the taste of Pepsi Max. But anyway, we're talking about something totally different. Let's go back to Photoshop. Once we get the pictures from the camera and we want to do something with it, the question comes down to what's your output. And a lot of times, a lot of people can't answer what's my output. What do I want to do with the picture once I'm done with it? Do I want to put it on Facebook? Do I want to put it on Flickr? Do I want to put it on Yahoo? Do I want to email it to everybody? Oh, this is a funny picture. Maybe it'll go viral. Maybe I'll email it to everybody and put it on Facebook and put it on Yahoo, and oh, look, it's a famous picture. So really, you got to kind of think about your output, what you're going to do. I, myself, like to use a lot of my animal photos until I get the perfect one. I know when I get the perfect one. Once I get the perfect one, I print it and I frame it. I put it up on my wall because it's some memories for me to just see when I'm walking by. Excuse me. And that's one of the things about any portrait, and in Photoshop, especially animal portraits, we can do a lot of neat things to bring out a lot of different elements and make it print ready. So that's going to be this week for Photoshop. We're going to do some photo retouching, and then we're going to make it print ready for what you want to output it to. And you can also do this for books. A lot of products out there that you can have a lot of fun with. Maybe you're really proud of your dog. Maybe your dog goes to endurance training. Maybe your dog competes, nationally or semi-regionally or whatever. Maybe you got a bunch of good shots of them running an obstacle course this last show, and you really want to make that your quote-unquote photo book. They make these neat little accordion books. They're a little book, cover, and then it folds out, into an accordion, and you see pictures and pictures. And they're 4x6 pictures or whatever. You can design, you can lay it out any way you want, but they're called accordion books. And they're easy to throw in your pocket or throw in the briefcase and bring with you. And, hey, look at what my dog does, if you want to do that. Or if you want to put it out into a storytelling book. Hey, this is my family, and maybe I got my pictures of my dog, and, I put my dog in my family book because my family book is me and my dog. You could do that. So thinking about your output is really going to dictate to what we're going to do for photo edits. So which one do we want to work on? How about we do the horse? I like the horse. The horse is really kind of neat. I like this picture. Very simple, very straightforward. I think it has some very good portrait qualities. The eyes are slanted, the ears are slanted. Everything lines up here nice, draws these wonderful lines here. Making some nice perspective lines as well. I also, that wasn't good. I just deleted my overlay. Let me put that back on. Pardon me for 1 second while I recreate it. That's so funny. So I got to right click and layout and lock position. Yep, there we go. Now I just got to remember how to A and S, I think. Yeah, A, and then color. Oops, delete. Well, color. How do I get to color? Color. I know, bad part of the show. I got to work on that. C. Well, that's obvious, right? What's your color picker key? C. Okay, got it. Let's do a red color. There we go. Put C again. Push C again so the color picker goes away. All right, so there we go. Red. Hey, beautiful. We got red again. Okay, so as I said, there was lines here. You also have some perspective things working with the railing here. I also love the fact that this kind of the slant line here, the slant of the horse's head, gives some really neat PowerPoint. So there's a PowerPoint kind of here. You got a PowerPoint kind of here. You got, kind of this slant here. So you got a PowerPoint up this way. If we do the rule of thirds, this is how you do the rule of thirds. You put a tic-tac-toe board on your picture. Don't mind my drawing because my drawing sucks with a mouse. But that's basically the rule of third. So you divide a third, third, a third, a third, and you get these PowerPoints. So if something lines up here, it's PowerPoint. If something lines up here, it's PowerPoint. If something lines up here, it's PowerPoint, so on and so. And what that does is it gives you some ability to control your composition and put some important things on those PowerPoints, because humans, as we view pictures, have this tendency to travel to those PowerPoints. So this is what I want to do to make this print ready. I really love this photo. I really want to make this print ready. I really want this to be something hanging on my wall. Okay? So I know I'm going to have to probably crop this because it's a 4x6. So it's 4 across here and 6 across there. So 6 and 4. I think I'm going to probably want the... And here's the thing. People don't understand one thing, and I think this is something that really needs to be discussed, and I'll probably do more on it later, but when you're talking about print sizes, you're talking about the proportional ratio between your width and your height. So a 4x6 is 4 wide by 6 tall, okay? That is a certain proportion, and it's like, 1 by 1.5, okay? So if you go up the size, saying you want that same proportion, so your camera's taking 4x6 photos, and you go up to, say, a 20. So you'd have to have a 20 by 30, which would give you a 20 inch by 30 inch. So there's your proportion. It's a 1 to 1.5 ratio. So that would give you the proper ratio. When people start taking their photos down to Walmart or, wherever, and they start printing them and they come out distorted and they can't understand, why is this coming out distorted? Why do I got little letter boxes on the top and the bottom? Why is this not working the way I want it to? Oh my God, I'm tired of this thing. You can really come back to basics and just go, first off, the camera takes a 4x6 photo. So a 1 by 1.5, 1 by 1.5 ratio photo. So when we go to output this to print, I'm going to make an 8 by 10. Well, 8 by 10 is not a 1 by 1.5, it's a 1 by 1.25. So that's the difference. It's a proportional problem, not just measurement. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're working at different sizes, especially when you're composing shots for a different size. If you know most people are going to use this portrait for a 8 by 10, you're going to want to leave a little more room at the top and a little more room at the bottom. So when you cut this, you're going to get 10 inches by 8 inches across. So, okay, enough babbling about this horse. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring out the blue and the I think it's a kind of a beige gray type thing. I'm going to bring out this color. I'm going to make this probably not much more contrast, but I think I'm just going to probably just brighten the whole photo just ever so slightly, bring in a little more contrast just to, bring it in deeper. I want to see if we can sharpen it and get a little more detail in this wonderful mane up here. I love this mane. He reminds me of a horse from the Clydesdales, but I know he's not a Clydesdale. I don't think he is anyway. Maybe somebody can correct me. I don't know. But what I really love about this is that, he's just got so much personality. He's right up in the camera. He's like, hey, man, how you doing? Take my picture. And that's what I really love. And I want to keep that. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix a few things and then output it for print. So stick with me here. So let's get to Photoshop. Here's our wonderful little horse dude. So we're going to get right in here a little bit. And first thing I'm going to do, I think I'm going to correct the tone values. And we're going to bring in the brightness and contrast. So I'm going to go down to half. Whoops. Darn it. I did a whoopsie. Let me delete that. So I'm going to come down to the half moon guy down here, the one that says adjustment layers, create new or fill or adjustment layer, which is a half moon with a little drop down. You click it, gives you a menu. I'm going to do some brightness and contrast. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to brighten the photo ever so slightly. And I'm going to probably just make a little bit more contrast. Not too much. That's a little too much. Let me bring it back. Or, yeah, that's about right, I suppose. Maybe it's a little too bright. Let's bring it back just a touch. I mean, well, you could even go darker with this and less contrast. And you would get a little bit more in the shadow area. And then what we'll do is we'll do another adjustment layer we'll do a curves, and we'll just try to brighten it just ever so slightly here. So we're gonna pick a point on this curve. So down here is the shadows, up here is the highlights. So I'm gonna pick somewhere down in the shadows, and I'm just gonna bring it ever so slightly up, bring the midtones back just ever so slightly, and then bring the highlights back up just a touch, not too much, maybe down just a touch. I don't know, right about there. I can notice that I got my shadows a little too bright, so I'm going to bring them down just ever so slightly. Notice as I click through this and I just kind of bring them down, change them ever so slightly, move them around. You can move around and get all sorts of different effects, you know, but you know, you really want to do subtle adjustments. You don't want the picture to look totally fake every time you work on one. I think right there, that looks beautiful. I like that. So we highlighted it, lightened up, darkened the sky, lightened up the face a little bit, lightened up that shadow area a little bit. Beautiful. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to kind of get a little bit more, I think I really want a little bit more vibrance, if it'll work the way I want it to, or saturation. So let's try a little more vibrance. Wow, at 47 it didn't do what I thought it was going to do. Let me see if it'll do it again. 30-ish. And I'm going to pump up the saturation ever so slightly. I don't want to go too much, but I just want a little bit just to bring out some of these colors. You know, the horse's brown, these kind of pale brown woods out here, and the grays and the snow, and the I love this mane. This mane really, I really like this mane. So there we go. So now we got a few adjustments. Okay, I'm going to also try to do 2 quick edits here. That I don't have time for, evidently, but I'm going to try anyway. And I'm going to try to get rid of this tractor real quick, just with a clone stamp brush. And I'm going to go on the background layer, and I'm going to try to hold the control key, or whoops, alt key, sorry. I always do that. I always forget which key it does. So alt key gives me a targeted area. I pick it, and then I pick my brush size of how big I want to be, and I start painting. And as you can see, I painted poorly there, and I want to shrink the size just a little bit and paint into the horse as close as possible. Get another sampled layer and paint in here just a little bit, maybe get a little more here and a little more here. And as you can see, I keep resampling an area, a different area every few brush strokes. That way it doesn't look like it's a repeated pattern all the time. Sometimes it will, and you can always just go grab a different pattern from a different area and paint in a little bit different stuff. You could even take and paint in this twig here, and we'll just paint in another twig. Let's see, we're going to grab a little bit more here, and a little more here. La la la, dee dee dee. I love working on photos. I love working on photos. And we do this little trick of, you know, working our way down through the painting here ever so slightly with different patterns, different things. It's Batman. No. Anyway, sorry. Let's see. And we go down this way. A little over here. A little bit that way. And we're pretty darn close here. Pretty darn close. Oh, whoops, I took out that twig again, didn't I? Okay, slide it right up here, right to there. Beautiful. Now we back it off, and there's no more tractor in the background. It doesn't look too bad. It could be a little better. I don't like that twig. Let me get rid of that twig real quick. Right click, or right alt key, grab it, get rid of it. Beautiful. That looks a little better. Looks like it belongs. So there we go. We got rid of the twig. Beautiful. So there's my one quick clone stamp brush right here. Really good tool to have to work with photos. I think I really want to do what we need to do now is go to the top layer, go Control Alt Shift E. We get a stamped or a compiled top layer, and then what we're going to do is we're going to sharpen it. We're going to sharpen it really heavily. So I'm going to go Filter, Sharpen, Unsharpen Mask, which is a very neat sharpening mechanism. Works very well. It works on three parameters: amount, radius, and threshold. Amount is how much from the current picture to the sharpened picture, how much do you want to sharpen it? A lot of times you're going to be in the 80% range, 60% range for typical things. You start getting into buildings, you might be like 125% because you really want to show off the lines. Animals, I usually stick right around 100%, and it'll show off their whiskers, their manes, the fur, the texture of the skin, and that sort of stuff. Now the radius is how many pixels wide do you want it to look at to sharpen this? Default's usually 1 pixel because that's pretty good range. You can even go a half a pixel and it'll soften the whole picture a little bit. It'll actually have the reverse effect that rather than sharpening, it'll actually soften it. But I usually stick with these smaller pictures, usually around 1.5 pixel radius, 100%, and a threshold of 3. Now the threshold will do 2 things. It'll look at the current pixel that it's working on and go, is this in threshold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to however many levels, and it puts it rates the pixel, and then you can use this threshold level to tell what pixels it should and shouldn't sharpen. So you could do like a threshold of 10, and it won't look like the picture was ever sharpened. You could do a threshold of 3 and only fur but most solid color things like the harness and stuff won't sharpen except for the very edges. So that's kind of what the threshold's for. So I like it. It's sharpened. Beautifully sharp picture. So I'm going to flatten this. So I'm going to go layers. I'm going to go flatten image. And then I'm going to get it ready for print, which means I got to crop it. So I'm going to grab the crop tool. It looks like this kind of 2 right angles and something going through the corner of it, or C on the keyboard. You can use the crop tool. So I'm going to crop it. I'm going to pick 8 by 10. I'm not going to care too much about the resolution at this point, unless you care at this point. But resolution would say that for every inch across and every 1 inch area, 1 inch square area, there's 300 dots of light, 300 dots of ink. That would be if you put a 300 here. If you only need 100 to get the output effect, you just put 100. If you need 1,000, and that's changing your resolution. If you already have high resolution pictures, you're just cropping the size out, getting the ratio right. I usually leave no resolution in there, and then that way it will actually just crop out the pieces of the image that you don't want anymore. So here's my 8 by 10. You can see that the answer is showing me that it's the rule of thirds. I'm not liking that it's going to crop a lot out of this. As you can see, I did not compositionally do well with this for being an 8 by 10. But, you know, we can kind of solve that. We'll either cut off more of the bottom or more of the top. It just depends on what we want to do. I think I'm probably going to put it right about there. So here's this. Wow, it looks like Donkey from Shrek, doesn't it? But here's this. Okay, so here we've now cropped it for 8 by 10. Now notice the proportions are a little different. It's not as elongated. Now we're ready to save this for print. So now we can go File, Save As. Now what I'm going to do is just save it back to where it was so that we can look at it. Save. And literally this now is ready for print. Now you can take that JPEG that we just saved and take it right down to your favorite printer. You go down to Walmart, go to the kiosk, put it in, and it's ready to go for 8 by 10. When you ask to print that file for 8 by 10, it will not distort it. It will not even ask you to crop or change it. So that's one thing about preparing your photos ahead of time. Sometimes if you know what your output is, it's kind of fun to do this. I would never overwrite a cropped photo onto the original. Always save the original because that's always your starting point. So let's go back and we'll look at image 3 here, which is here's the horse before edits. Here's the image 3 after the edits. As you can see, everything got a little bit bigger, a little wider because of the crop. We'll go back to image 1. Notice we're a little dark here, a little more reddish lighting. You got these wonderful lines being drawn by everything. And then, whoops, then on image, you know, on the edits, we brought it up full, lightened up a little bit more of the shadow side, lightened up the ears just a touch, lost the ears because just very chin because of the crop size. We really couldn't work with it as well. Or, well, we could, but that was the choice that we made, or I made. And there it is. So there's your final product for 8 by 10, ready to go up and get printed, so you can put it in an 8x10 frame and then stick it up on the wall. So there you go. And let's go back to this one. So that's this week's Digital Babble. That's the end of our pet portrait section for now. If you got more questions on pet portraits, or if you got questions or examples of pet portraits, please send them in to thedigitalbabble@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to review them. If you want to even set up a time or whatever you want to talk about photography on air, I will even get my phone set up here so that we can talk directly on air. More than happy to do like question and answer stuff if you send me some photos that you want to talk about, and then we could talk about them directly on air. I like doing that. Love troubleshooting. That's me. So anyway, that's this week's Digital Babble with your host, me, Flipper. And I'm on every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. or 7 approximately to 8. Here on fingerlakes1.com, fingerlakes1.tv. Be sure to check out the other shows. And go check us out at our website at tdbny.com. And you can go look at any of the old shows or any of the writings on there. Self-help, all that good stuff. And I will catch you on the flip side. Talk to you later.
A Flipside Studio production. It's the Digital Babble. Tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on fingerlakes1.com. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter.